Cole Hartley had been on the road since sunrise. His horse, Dusty, walked slowly down the quiet dirt road that led into the small town of Willow Creek. Cole was used to traveling from place to place, never staying too long anywhere. He helped people when he could, did honest work, and moved on again. Some towns remembered him kindly. Others forgot him the moment he rode away. He didn't mind. Life on the road suited him because it kept his heart light and his thoughts clear. But that day, something told him Willow Creek would be different. The town was peaceful and calm, with old wooden buildings and a wide-open sky stretching overhead. A few people waved at him as he rode past. Cole nodded back politely. He liked the look of the place. It felt warm somehow, like a town that had seen its share of troubles, but still remained gentle. He reached the small diner at the end of the main street. The smell of warm bread and fresh coffee drifted out the door, and his stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten since morning. He tied Dusty near the porch, gave the horse a soft pat on the neck, and walked inside. The diner was simple wooden floors, old pictures on the wall, and a counter where a cheerful woman served food. Cole chose a seat in the corner where he could see everything without bothering anyone. He liked sitting quietly, observing people. It helped him understand a town quickly. A few minutes later, he noticed her. Mara Ellison. She sat alone near the window, staring outside with worry in her eyes. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea that had already gone cold. She wasn't old, but there was a sadness in her face that made her look older than she should. People in the diner kept glancing at her with sympathy, but no one approached her. Cole didn't know her story yet, but he could tell she carried a heavy weight. Then his eyes shifted to the far side of the diner, where three men in dark suits were talking loudly. They didn't fit with the rest of the town. Their shoes were too shiny, their expressions too proud, and their voices too sharp. They kept looking in Mara's direction, as if she was a target. Their whispers were short and tense, like they were planning something. Cole didn't like their energy. He continued eating quietly, but he kept watching. After a while, Mara slowly stood up, paid for her tea, and walked out of the diner with her shoulders lowered, as though she had the world on her back. The men in suits stood up 2 minutes later and followed her outside. Cole's instincts stirred. He didn't jump to conclusions, but years of traveling had taught him that trouble often wore expensive shoes and confident smiles. He finished his food quickly, thanked the diner owner, and stepped outside. Mara stood at the corner of the street. The suited men had not reached her yet, but they were heading in her direction. She seemed aware of them, and her steps grew faster. Cole didn't want to interfere in something that wasn't his business, but he also didn't want to see something wrong happen when he could prevent it. He walked slowly toward Dusty, pretending he was minding his own business while keeping an eye on the situation. Mara turned the corner into a quieter alley, perhaps hoping to avoid the men. Unfortunately, that made things worse, not better. The suited men followed her. Cole's jaw tightened. He led Dusty toward the alley entrance, staying far enough not to alarm anyone, but close enough that he could hear raised voices. Mara's voice was soft but firm. The men's voices were louder, harsher. They were pushing her, demanding something he couldn't fully hear. She kept saying she wouldn't sign anything. The men insisted she had no choice. One of them blocked her path. Cole felt the familiar pull inside him, the one that always told him when something wasn't right. He stepped into the alley, keeping his voice steady. "Afternoon," he said quietly. The men turned around quickly, surprised to see someone else there. Cole wasn't threatening, but he had a quiet strength that made people hesitate. His eyes went to Mara, not the men. "You okay, ma'am?" Mara stared at him, her lips parting slightly in relief. She nodded, but it was clear she wasn't okay. One of the suited men spoke up. "This is none of your business, Cowboy." Cole didn't blink. "Then it should be easy to walk away." The man smirked, but his smirk faded when he realized Cole wasn't bothered. Cowboys knew how to stand steady, and Cole stood like a mountain imshakable, calm and certain. Mara stepped closer to Cole as if being near him made her feel safer. The men exchanged looks and finally walked away, muttering under their breath. Cole waited until they were gone before turning to Mara. "You sure you're all right?" he asked softly. She nodded again, but her eyes were full of fear and exhaustion. Cole didn't push her. People opened up when they were ready, not before. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't expect anyone to step in." Gave her a gentle nod. "Happy to help." She seemed to think for a long moment, looking at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Her breathing grew heavier. Her fingers trembled. What she said next caught Cole off guard completely. "Make me your wife for tonight." Cole blinked slowly, wondering if he heard correctly. Mara's voice was trembling, but her eyes were serious, not desperate in a wrong way, but desperate in a protective way. She hurried to explain as if she was afraid he would misunderstand. "I don't mean it the wrong way," she said quickly. "I don't want anything improper. I just need protection. Those men, they keep coming back. They want my land. They think because my husband passed away, I can be pushed around. If they see me with a husband, even for one night, they will leave me alone. At least long enough for me to get some help." Her voice broke at the end. She wasn't lying. She wasn't trying to trick him. She was simply exhausted, cornered, and out of options. Cole stays silent for a moment, studying her face. He saw honesty, fear, and courage mixed together. He didn't know her story yet, but he knew enough. She was fighting alone, and those men were trying to take advantage of her. He spoke gently. "You don't owe me an explanation. I just need to know one thing. Do you trust me to help you?" She swallowed hard and nodded. "I do." He didn't smile or act surprised. He simply nodded, accepting her trust. "All right," he said. "If being your husband for a night keeps them away, then I'll do it." Her shoulders loosened as though a heavy weight had been lifted. She closed her eyes briefly, overwhelmed with relief. "Thank you," she whispered again. "I didn't know who else to ask." Cole offered his arm politely, nothing less. "Then let's make this look real enough to keep them off your back." She took his arm gently, her hands still trembling. Together, they walked out of the alley and into the open street. Not as a frightened widow and a wandering stranger anymore, but as a united front to people who had met by chance but were now standing side by side, ready to protect what was important. And as they walked, the townsfolk turned their heads in surprise, wondering who the quiet cowboy was and why the widowed woman walked beside him, holding on to him as though he belonged there. Cole didn't know it yet, but the moment he agreed to help her, his path had changed. Willow Creek wasn't going to be just another stop. Something deeper had begun. Cole walked beside Mara through the main street of Willow Creek, his arms still linked with hers. The afternoon sun washed the town in warm light, but Mara's face still carried a mix of relief and worry. Cole didn't rush her or ask anything yet. He understood that she needed a moment to gather herself. Sometimes silence was the kindest thing a person could offer. People in the town stopped to look at them, not in a rude way, but in surprise. Mara had always walked alone, always carried her worries quietly. Seeing her with someone at her side was something new. Some of the older women smiled softly, as though they were pleased to see her with company. A few men nodded at Cole, acknowledging him with polite respect. Cole returned the nods but kept most of his attention on Mara. After a few minutes, he spoke gently. "Where do you want to go now?" Mara pointed toward a narrow road leading out of town. "My ranch is just outside the town line. It's not far. We can talk there." "If you don't mind," of course, Cole replied. They walked together down the dusty road. Cole stayed relaxed, his calm presence helping her settle. Mara took a deep breath, as though preparing herself to share something she had held inside for too long. "I guess I should explain," she said softly. "Only if you want to," Cole answered. "I'm here to help, not force anything out of you." She gave a small, grateful smile. "Thank you." Truly, they walked a while before she began speaking again. "My husband Daniel passed away 2 years ago. A sickness took him suddenly. We had built the ranch together. It was our dream. He wanted it to be a place where we could grow old, raise animals, and live peacefully." Her voice grew quiet. Cole didn't interrupt. He let her speak at her own pace. "After he was gone," she continued, "I tried to manage everything on my own. The animals, the repairs, the land agreements. It was too much, but I kept going. I didn't want to lose the home he loved so much." Cole respected that deeply. Not everyone had the strength to carry a dream alone. "Then those men appeared," she said. her voice tightening slightly. "They work for a big company that wants to buy land around here. They say they want to build something stores or warehouses. I told them no many times. They stopped being polite. They kept coming back. They said because I'm alone, they can pressure me into selling." Cole clenched his jaw slightly. He didn't like people who tried to use fear to get what they wanted. "They showed up at my land again last week," she continued. "They said if I had a legal partner, someone who could speak on my behalf, they would have to follow different rules. They can't force a married couple the way they can pressure a widow." Cole understood now. "So, you needed someone beside you," Ada nodded. "I didn't plan to ask anyone. But today, when I saw them again in the diner, I just felt I couldn't face them alone anymore. When you stepped in earlier, something told me I could trust you." "I know it sounds strange, doesn't?" Cole said simply. He had met many people on his travels. He knew when someone was lying, and Mara wasn't lying. She had been strong for too long, and now she needed someone to help her stand. They reached her ranch soon after. The property was beautiful wide fields, a wooden fence, a barn with fading red paint, and a small white house with a porch. It wasn't perfect. Some of the fences needed repairs, and the barn roof had a small break near the top, but it had heart. It looked like a place built by love and hard work. Mara watched Cole's face anxiously. "It's nothing grand," she said quickly, "but I do my best to care for it." Cole shook his head. "It's a good place. You've kept it going, even with everything you're facing. That takes strength." Her eyes softened. She didn't hear praise often, and when she did, it touched her deeply. They walked toward the porch. Cole helped her up the small steps. Though she didn't really need help, he did it out of respect. She opened the door and invited him inside. The house was warm and simple. A few old photographs hung on the walls. A wooden table sat near the kitchen. Everything was clean and organized. Mara took pride in her home. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked. "Water's fine," Cole said. She poured water from a glass jug and set a glass in front of him. Cole thanked her and took a slow drink. Mara sat across from him, folding her hands on the table. "I'm sorry for asking something so strange from you," she said quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." Cole placed the glass down and looked at her with steady eyes. "You asked because you needed help. There's no shame in that. But I asked you to pretend to be my husband," she said softly. "Even if just for a short time. That's not a small request." "It's all right," Cole replied calmly. "I've been in towns where people needed help with worse troubles than this. You're not doing anything wrong. You just want to protect what matters to you." Mara looked at him with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Cole's calmness made her feel safe, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Before they could say more, the sound of a truck engine rumbled from outside. Mara tensed immediately. Cole stood up slowly, his instincts sharpening. "They're here again," Mara whispered, her voice shaking. Cole stepped toward the door and opened it. The same three suited men from the diner were walking toward the porch. Their expressions were confident, as if they believed Mara would finally give in. Cole stepped outside calmly, with Mara standing just behind him. One of the men smirked. "You again?" Cole didn't move an inch. "She's not alone." "You need to leave." The man raised an eyebrow. "And who exactly are you?" Cole glanced at Mara, silently asking if she was ready. She nodded, standing straighter. "I'm her husband," Cole said clearly. The men went silent for a moment. Their confident expressions loosened. Cole's tone wasn't loud or threatening, but it was firm. "You didn't mention a husband before," one of the men said to Mara. "That's because he wasn't here earlier," she replied, her voice steady for the first time. The men exchanged glances. Their whole plan had depended on her being alone and unprotected. A married woman couldn't be pressured the same way, at least not without legal trouble. "Well," the tallest man muttered, "this changes things." Cole stepped forward slightly. "It does. And if you want to talk about the land again, you go through me." The men didn't argue this time. They weren't brave enough to fight someone who clearly wasn't intimidated by them. They backed away, muttering promises to return later and discuss properly. But even their voices lacked the confidence they had earlier. When they finally drove away, Mara let out a long breath she had been holding for days, maybe weeks. "You handled that so easily," she said softly. It's not hard to stand up to people who only act strong when they think someone is weak, Cole replied. Mara sat on the porch stairs. She looked tired, but for the first time, she also looked peaceful. Cole sat beside her. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know, Cole answered. But I wanted to. She looked at him with warm eyes. I'm glad you came to Willow Creek. Cole looked out at the open fields, then at her house, and then back at Mara. Something inside him agreed with her completely. He had stopped in Willow Creek by chance, but now it didn't feel like chance at all. It felt like he was meant to arrive on the day she needed help. Mara smiled faintly, almost shyly. For tonight, we'll just pretend to be husband and wife. After that, you're free to go, and I won't keep you. I know you're a traveler, Cole nodded gently. Tonight is enough. Let's just keep you safe. She looked at him gratefully. Thank you, Cole. And as the sun began to set behind the ranch, Cole realized something he hadn't expected. Helping Mara didn't feel like a duty. It felt right. It felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. The evening sky slowly turned orange as the sun dipped lower, spreading warm light across Mara's ranch. Cole and Mara sat quietly on the porch for a long moment, letting the calm sink in after the tense encounter with the suited men. The air smelled of fresh hay, warm earth, and the faint scent of wildflowers carried by the wind. It was peaceful, something Cole rarely allowed himself to feel. Mara wrapped her arms around herself, not because she was cold, but because her emotions had been pulled in so many directions that day. She felt shaken, relieved, and strangely hopeful all at once. Cole noticed the tension in her shoulders and spoke softly. You don't have to worry now, he said. Those men won't try anything tonight. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the fading sky. I know. It just feels strange, having someone here. I've been alone for so long. Cole leaned back slightly. He didn't push her or ask for details. Instead, he let her talk at her own pace. When Daniel was alive, she began quietly. The ranch felt full. He was always humming or fixing something or laughing at something silly. After he passed away, everything felt too big, too empty. Cole listened carefully, giving her the comfort of silence. I kept telling myself I could handle everything, she continued. Feeding the animals, repairing fences, dealing with paperwork. I did it because I wanted to keep his memory alive. But lately, it's been harder. Those men made it worse. They kept coming when I was alone, and it made me feel like the ranch wasn't mine anymore. She paused, afraid she was saying too much. Cole spoke softly. Nothing you're saying is too much. I'm here. You can say whatever you need to. Mara gave him a grateful glance. Thank you. You don't know how good it feels to hear that. Cole looked out at the open fields. The wind moved through the long grass like waves. This ranch is important to you. That makes it important to me too. You shouldn't lose something you love just because someone thinks they can take it from you. Mara felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in months. Cole's words weren't dramatic, they were simple, honest, and steady. That was what she needed most. As the sun set completely, she stood up. Let me show you around. If we're pretending to be married for the night, you should know a little about the place. Cole smiled lightly and followed her. They walked toward the barn first. Its wooden walls glowed softly in the moonlight. Mara opened the door, and the smell of hay and clean grain drifted out. These are the animals I take care of, she said. Inside were 2 horses, 3 goats, a cow, and a few chickens asleep on their perches. It's not much, but it's enough to keep the ranch going. Cole approached the nearest horse and patted its neck gently. They look healthy. You're doing good work. Mara's heart lifted a little. I try my best. Cole walked around the barn, checking the beams, the doors, and the fencing. You've kept the barn in good shape, but I can help fix that broken part near the roof. It's small, but it'll get worse if it rains. She nodded. I know, but I haven't had time to climb up there. I can do it for you tomorrow morning, Cole offered. Mara stared at him, surprised. But you're only here for one night. Cole shrugged lightly. One morning won't change much for me, and it'll help you stay safe. Her eyes softened. You're a good man, Cole. He didn't answer right away. Compliments always made him a little quiet. Instead, he gave her a tiny nod and kept walking with her toward the backfield. The night air grew cooler, and the sky filled with stars. They walked slowly through the field, letting the soft grass brush against their boots. The moon cast a gentle light around them. "Do you travel because you want to?" Mara asked softly. "Or because you have to?" Cole took time before answering. "A little of both. I didn't have a place to call home for a long time. My family moved around, and when I grew up, I kept moving. It became a habit. But I like helping people where I can. It gives my journey purpose. Doesn't it get lonely?" she asked. He looked at the sky thoughtfully. "Sometimes, but I try not to think about it." Mara understood loneliness very well. She had lived with it every day since Daniel passed. Being near Cole now felt strange, but comforting, like she was standing next to someone who understood the quiet parts of her heart. They reached the wooden fence at the edge of the field. It was old, but strong enough to stand through storms. Mara leaned on it gently. "Thank you for making things easier today," she said softly. "I don't think I've ever said that to anyone since Daniel died." "You don't have to thank me," Cole replied. "Helping you feels right." His voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. Mara looked at him, realizing he meant it. That simple truth warmed her more than anything. Just then, the sound of an engine echoed from the road. Mara stiffened, fear rising again. Cole turned toward the sound, his expression sharpening. A familiar truck rolled into view. It was the same one the suited men used. Cole stepped forward without hesitation, placing himself in front of Mara in a protective stance. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His calm but firm presence was enough to send a message. The truck stopped at the gate, and one of the men got out. He looked frustrated and tired of being challenged. "We just want to talk," he called out. Cole answered clearly. "Then talk from there." The man looked annoyed but respected Cole's firmness. "Fine, we just want to confirm something. Are you really her husband?" Cole didn't blink. "Yes." Mara stood taller behind him, her fear slowly turning into courage with Cole by her side. The man clicked his tongue. "This creates problems for us. We'll come back tomorrow to discuss this properly." "No," Cole said calmly but firmly. "You'll stay away. If you want to talk about anything, you'll contact the sheriff first. No more coming here without notice." The man stared at him for a long moment, realizing Cole wasn't someone who could be pushed. Then he got back into the truck and left, more frustrated than before. Mara let out a shaky breath. "You stood up to them again. And so easily." Cole turned toward her. "They only act strong because they think no one will stop them. When they see someone standing firm, they change their tune." She nodded. "Still, thank you." Cole brushed the dust from his jacket. "They won't be back tonight." They walked back toward the house slowly. Mara felt safer than she had felt in a long time. The darkness no longer felt threatening because Cole walked beside her, steady and calm. Inside the house, Mara lit a small lamp on the table. Its soft glow filled the room with warmth. Cole sat across from her again, and she looked at him with new eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was gentle and peaceful. Finally, Mara said softly, "When I asked you earlier to pretend to be my husband, I was terrified. I didn't know how you would react. But now, I'm glad I asked. You've done more for me in one evening than anyone has done in years." Cole looked at her quietly. Something warm flickered in his chest, something he wasn't expecting to feel. "You're strong," he said. "I'm just giving you a little support." And Mara smiled faintly. "It means more than you know." They sat together as the night deepened. The house felt less empty. The ranch felt less lonely. And though their marriage was only pretend, the trust and comfort between them were real. The wind whispered outside, the stars shimmered above, and for the first time in a very long time, Mara didn't feel alone. And Cole realized that protecting her felt less like an obligation, and more like something he truly wanted to do. Night settled deeply over the ranch, wrapping everything in quiet darkness. The soft glow from the small lamp on the table made the house feel warm and safe. Mara sat with her hands around a warm cup of tea, slowly though she had barely taken a sip. Cole sat across from her, calm as ever, yet there was a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there earlier. Outside, the wind brushed gently against the windows, and the animals shifted in the barn, settling in for the night. Everything felt peaceful, but inside both Cole and Mara, thoughts moved like slow river currents. Mara finally spoke, her voice calm but thoughtful. "I still can't believe you agreed to help me. Most men would have walked away the moment I made that strange request." Cole gave a small smile. "I don't walk away from someone who needs help." "I can see that now," she murmured. She looked down at her cup for a moment, gathering courage to say something deeper. "You know, when Daniel passed, everyone in town helped me for a little while. They brought food, offered to fix small things, but after a few months they went back to their lives. I don't blame them. People have their own problems. But the silence afterward, it was hard." Cole didn't interrupt. He simply listened with full attention, which was something Mara rarely received. "There were nights," she continued softly, "when I felt like the whole world forgot I existed. I would sit right here at this very table and think, maybe I'm meant to face everything alone." Cole leaned forward slightly. "No one is meant to face everything alone."
Allah.
Mara looked up at him, her eyes glistening with an emotion she tried to hide. "It took you only one day to give me strength again." Cole opened his mouth to answer, but the words didn't come right away. Instead, he looked at her with gentle understanding before saying, "Sometimes, a person just needs someone to stand beside them, even for a short time." Mara nodded slowly. "And sometimes that short time changes everything." The room grew quiet again, but it wasn't an uncomfortable quiet. It was warm and full of meaning. After a moment, she stood up. "Let me get you a blanket. Even if you're only staying for tonight, I want you to be comfortable." Cole started to stand as well. "I can sleep in the barn." "It's fine." "No," Mara said quickly, almost too quickly. "You saved me today. I can't let you sleep out there. You'll stay inside. I insist." He hesitated, but her kindness was firm. "All right," he said softly. She went to the hallway and returned with a folded blanket and a small cushion. "You can sleep here on the couch. It may not be fancy, but it's warm and clean." Cole accepted the blanket with a grateful nod. "Thank you." Mara watched him arrange the blanket for a moment, and then she spoke again, her voice softer. "Cole, tonight, we may be pretending for those men, but it doesn't feel like pretending. Not to me." Cole looked up slowly. His eyes held quiet sincerity. "It doesn't feel like pretending to me either." That simple exchange made something in Mara's heart steady. She felt a strange warmth, something like hope she hadn't let herself feel since Daniel died. Outside, the moonlight slid across the porch. Inside, the air felt safe and quiet. After a few more moments of talking about the next morning's plan, how to handle the suited men if they returned, how they would speak to the sheriff, how to keep the ranch protected, Mara finally excused herself to rest. She turned toward her bedroom door, but before she could enter, she paused and looked back at Cole. "Good night, husband," she said the last word with a shy, playful tone, testing how it sounded. Cole felt his heart tighten unexpectedly. He gave her a small smile. "Good night, wife." Mara closed the door gently, leaning her back against it once she was inside. She let out a slow breath, feeling a mix of nervousness and comfort she couldn't explain. Something was happening inside her heart, something she wasn't ready to name yet. Meanwhile, Cole sat on the couch, staring at the dim lamp. He thought about his life, the countless roads he had traveled, the towns he had passed through, the lonely nights under open skies. He had never stayed in one place long enough to feel anything real. Yet here, in this small house with creaking floors and warm light, he felt something he hadn't expected. He felt like he belonged. Sleep came to him slowly. He stayed awake, listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch. The way the wind rustled softly through the trees, the way the house settled gently as the night deepened. When he finally drifted to sleep, he felt peaceful. Morning arrived gently, with sunlight peeking through the curtains. Cole woke up early, as he always did. He folded the blanket neatly and placed the cushion back where it belonged. When he stepped onto the porch, the morning air greeted him with cool softness. He walked toward the barn to check on the animals. The horses stomped lightly, the goats bleated softly, and the chickens clucked lazily. Cole worked quietly, giving hay, checking water, patting the horses' necks. He worked with ease, moving like someone who had grown up doing these things. When Mara stepped out of the house, she froze, watching him through the warm morning light. He fit into the ranch perfectly. Too perfectly. "You're up early," she called softly. Cole turned with a small smile. "Old habit." She walked toward him slowly. "Seeing you here helping like this, it feels like a real morning. One I haven't had in a long time." Cole brushed his hands on his jeans. "Just doing what needs to be done." Mara smiled. It reached her eyes this time. They spent the next hour working together, feeding animals, checking fences, clearing small branches near the yard. Mara talked about the daily routines she followed, and Cole listened, offering help where he could. By mid-morning, they were back on the porch, drinking warm tea. The sun was bright, the sky clear, and the ranch seemed alive with new energy. But the peace didn't last long. The low rumbling of a truck engine echoed down the road again. Mara's shoulders tensed, but Cole stood up calmly. "It's all right. I'm here." The same truck appeared, rolling toward the gate. But this time, instead of 3 suited men, there were 4, and the man in front looked more serious than before. Mara felt fear creep into her chest, but Cole walked forward with steady steps. He placed himself once again between her and the trouble approaching. "You should stay inside," he said softly, without turning back. Mara didn't listen. She stepped beside him instead. Cole glanced at her, slightly surprised. "You don't have to face them alone," she whispered. "Not anymore." He nodded once. The truck parked, and the men got out with determined expressions. They had come back stronger, thinking numbers could intimidate. But Cole wasn't shaken. He stood tall, calm, ready. One of the men stepped forward. "We're here to settle things today." Cole stared at him with steady eyes. "Then we'll settle them. But not the way you think." The man narrowed his eyes at Cole. "You're not part of this land deal. Her husband is always part of it," Cole said firmly. Mara felt warmth rush through her chest at his words, even in the middle of fear. The man's jaw tightened. "Then we talk as a group. All of us." Cole stepped forward just slightly, enough to block the men from taking another step. "You can talk," he said, "but you won't threaten her, and you won't try to take advantage anymore." The air grew tense. The next minutes would decide everything, not just for Mara's ranch, but for what Cole and Mara were slowly becoming to each other. Together they stood at the front of the porch, side by side, stronger than either of them had expected. Cole woke up early the next morning, just as the first light touched the sky. The soft colors of dawn spread slowly across the ranch, and the world outside the small guest room seemed calm and peaceful. For a moment, he simply lay there, listening to the quiet sounds of the house, the soft creak of the wooden walls, the faint whistle of the morning wind, and the distant call of animals waking up. He sat up slowly, remembering everything that had happened the previous night. He had stood by Mara's side, protected her, spoken for her, and helped her feel safe again. He had agreed to be her husband for the night, not because he wanted anything from her, but because something deep inside him had told him she needed someone to stand with her. Now the sun was rising, and with it came the thought that he needed to continue his journey. That had always been his life, moving from town to town, staying nowhere for too long. He didn't know if he truly belonged anywhere. But when he stepped out of the room and walked into the kitchen, he found Mara already awake. She stood by the stove, making breakfast, her hair tied back loosely, her face soft and peaceful. She looked different in the morning light, calmer, stronger, almost glowing with a quiet kind of hope. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. "Morning," Cole replied softly. She placed 2 plates on the table, filled with eggs, bread, and fruit. "I thought you might be hungry." Cole sat down, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. The warmth of the kitchen, the smell of food, and the presence of another person made the moment feel strangely comforting. He wasn't used to this kind of peace. After breakfast, Cole stood up and helped her clean the dishes. Mara tried to stop him, saying he was a guest, but he only smiled and shook his head. Cleaning together felt natural, like something two people who trusted each other would do. When the dishes were done, Mara wiped her hands on a towel and turned to him slowly. She seemed nervous but also determined. "You're leaving today, aren't you?" she asked quietly. Cole looked down at his boots for a moment. "That's the plan," he said softly. "I never stay in one place for too long." Mara nodded. She didn't try to convince him otherwise, but her eyes held a sadness she couldn't hide. "Well," she said gently, "before you go, I want to walk with you around the ranch. Just one last time." He agreed, and they stepped outside together. The morning air was cool and fresh, filled with the smell of grass and earth. Birds sang from the trees, and the sky was brightening into a beautiful blue. They walked side by side, moving across the land she had fought so hard to protect. As they reached the old wooden fence near the edge of the property, Mara paused. She looked across the fields, her eyes tracing the rolling hills, the barn, and the quiet little farmhouse in the distance. "My husband built this fence," she said softly. "We worked on it together. It took us a whole summer." Cole stayed silent, letting her speak. He always said the land had a spirit of its own, that it needed care and respect. She took a slow breath. "When he died, everyone expected me to fall apart, but I didn't. I tried to stay strong. I tried to hold everything together." She turned toward Cole, her eyes shining with emotion. "But being strong all the time is heavy. In these past years, I've felt very alone." Cole felt something in his chest tighten. He understood loneliness better than most people ever could. "Mara," he said softly, "you've been carrying too much on your own. Anyone would feel the weight." She smiled a little at his words, then took a step closer to him. "Last night when you stood beside me, I felt safe for the first time in a long while." Her voice was steady, but filled with deep honesty. "I know our agreement was only for one night," she continued. "I know you didn't come here looking for anything, and I'm not asking for promises." But she paused, gathering courage. "Don't disappear from my life, Cole." The wind grew still. The ranch seemed to hold its breath. Cole looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had faced so much pain, loss, and pressure, yet still stood strong. Her courage touched something deep inside him. He took a slow breath. "I didn't expect to feel anything here," he admitted. "I've lived my whole life on the road, never settling, never staying. I told myself that was the only way I knew." He glanced at the ranch, the fields, the barns, the wooden fences that told stories of a family's past. Then he looked back at Mara, whose eyes were filled with quiet hope. "But being here," he said softly, "it felt different." Mara's expression softened. "I don't know what the future holds," he continued, "but I don't want to walk away from this like it never happened. Not from you." A small, relieved breath escaped her lips. They continued their walk, moving toward the barn where the animals were beginning to wake. Cole helped her feed the horses and check on the chickens. They worked together naturally, moving as though they had done this for years. Every moment felt warm and familiar. When they walked back toward the house, they saw the suited men standing near the gate, their expressions tight and frustrated. Mara stiffened in fear, but Cole placed a steadying hand on her arm and walked forward with calm confidence. The men tried to speak again, bringing up legal claims and fake warnings, but Cole shut them down with a firm, steady tone. He told them the truth, that the land belonged to Mara, that they had no right to harass her, and that they could face real consequences if they returned. The men looked at Cole at his calm strength and finally realized it was pointless. They left without turning back. Mara watched them disappear down the road, relief washing over her. "They won't bother you anymore," Cole said quietly. Mara nodded, gratitude filling her eyes. They walked back to the porch together. The sun was now fully up, bright and warm. Cole picked up his bag from where he had left it near the steps. It was a small bag. Everything he owned fit inside it. That was the life he lived. Mara stood beside him silently, waiting. "Well," he said softly, "I guess this is goodbye." Mara looked at the bag, then at him. "Does it have to be?" Cole hesitated. All his life, he had lived like a drifting shadow. No roots, no plans, no home. He never allowed himself to stay anywhere long enough to care. But here with Mara, something had changed. Maybe it was her strength. Maybe it was her kindness. Maybe it was the way she made the world feel calm around him. Or maybe he was tired of running. He set his bag down slowly. "No," he said quietly. "Maybe it doesn't." Mara's breath caught. Cole stepped closer to her, his voice gentle. "If you want me to stay, I can try. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but I know I don't want to walk away from today." Her eyes filled with warmth, the peaceful warmth. "I would like that," she said softly. They walked back inside together, not as strangers and not as husband and wife from a one-night agreement, but as two people who had found something rare, trust, hope, and a chance at something new. Cole placed his bag in the corner of the guest room. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't leaving. Like maybe he had found a place where he belonged. Outside, the ranch stretched out in the morning sunlight, quiet and strong. And inside the small farmhouse, Mara and Cole sat together at the kitchen table, sharing a simple moment that felt more real than anything either of them had felt in years. Their story had started with an unusual request, but now something real had begun.